July 2025 marks a turning point in U.S.-Philippines relations as both nations finalize the landmark Agreement on Reciprocal Trade, or ART framework. Sealed during President Marcos Jr.'s visit to Washington, D.C., this pact is more than a trade deal. It's a strategic move to counter China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific. The agreement promises to reshape the Philippine economy, especially its vulnerable energy sector, by inviting deep American investment in energy exploration and critical minerals. For the U.S., it's a key step in diversifying supply chains away from China and reinforcing alliances in a region vital to global trade. But the deal comes at a tense moment. With the South China Sea dispute simmering and China's assertiveness on the rise, the ART framework directly challenges China's territorial claims, raising the stakes for Manila. Will this alliance bring prosperity and security, or entangle the Philippines in a conflict it can't afford? Understanding this pact is crucial to grasping the future of U.S.-Philippines relations and the fragile stability of the South China Sea. The ART framework grants American corporations fast-tracked access to the Philippine energy sector, including oil and gas projects in the disputed West Philippine Sea. U.S. firms also get first rights to develop a major liquefied natural gas complex in Subic Bay, cementing their presence in a vital industry. The agreement extends to critical minerals, nickel, cobalt, copper, giving U.S. companies preferential access to resources essential for modern technology. For the Philippines, this could mean a surge in investment but also raises concerns about foreign control over strategic assets. On trade, the deal eliminates tariffs on key U.S. agricultural products and sets import quotas favoring American farmers. However, the U.S. will impose a steep 20% tariff on all Philippine-made goods, a sharp increase that stirs controversy. This imbalance means American products enter the Philippines duty-free, while Filipino exports face new barriers in the U.S. market. Critics argue the deal's benefits are lopsided, casting doubt on the promise of mutual gain. The ART framework's trade terms have become a flashpoint, fueling debate over whether the Philippines is getting a fair deal. The stakes are high economic opportunity but also the risk of deepening dependency. The ART framework delivers clear, substantial benefits to the United States, with projections of up to $500 billion for American firms by 2028. U.S. corporations gain privileged access to energy, mining, and guaranteed agricultural markets, positioning the Philippines as a key partner in America's friends-whoring strategy. In contrast, there's no comparable forecast for the Filipino economy, fueling criticism that the deal is fundamentally one-sided. Many in Manila fear the Philippines is becoming a source of raw materials and a captive market, rather than an equal partner. The agreement's structure raises sovereignty concerns, especially with foreign entities gaining first rights to develop critical infrastructure and resources. Civil society and opposition groups are demanding transparency and a public debate on the long-term consequences. The central question, is the price of a stronger U.S. alliance too high for the Philippines? While the administration touts the deal as a bulwark against China, many Filipinos worry about trading one dependency for another. The ART framework's perceived imbalance has sparked deep unease about the nation's future. China wasted no time condemning the U.S.-Philippines pact, viewing it as a direct challenge to its sweeping claims in the South China Sea. The agreement's provisions for U.S. energy exploration in the West Philippine Sea have provoked Beijing, escalating tensions in already contested waters. In 2024, Chinese Coast Guard vessels rammed and boarded Philippine naval boats, seizing weapons and injuring sailors, a stark warning to Manila and Washington. China's gray zone tactics, coercion and intimidation short of war, have intensified, with massive flotillas swarming disputed shoals and forcing Philippine withdrawals. These incidents highlight the volatile environment into which the new pact is introduced. By inviting U.S. commercial interests into contested zones, the agreement puts American assets directly in China's path. Any future confrontation involving U.S.-flagged vessels could escalate rapidly, risking a wider conflict. The risk of miscalculation is dangerously high, threatening to turn a regional dispute into a global crisis. The ART framework has raised the stakes in the South China Sea to unprecedented levels. The ART framework is inseparable from the U.S.-Philippines military alliance, anchored by the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty. The U.S. has expanded its military footprint in the Philippines, now with access to 9 bases, including sites near Taiwan. This presence deters Chinese aggression and strengthens the U.S. position in the Indo-Pacific. The new pact fuses economic and military interests, giving the U.S. a direct commercial stake in the region's security. The logic: China may hesitate to interfere with US-backed projects, fearing a stronger American response, but critics warn that US actions haven't always matched its rhetoric, and a policy of escalation avoidance could embolden China. The credibility of the alliance is under constant scrutiny, with the new agreement forcing Washington to prove its resolve. The stakes are higher than ever. Any misstep could have far-reaching consequences. The ART framework has split Philippine opinion, igniting fierce debate over the nation's future. Supporters, led by the Marcos administration and business leaders, hail the deal as a catalyst for economic growth and energy security. They argue that US investment is essential for modernization and that a stronger alliance is the only way to deter Chinese encroachment. For them, economic concessions are a fair price for a reliable security umbrella. Critics, however, see the pact as neo-colonialism, surrendering sovereignty and strategic resources for questionable gains. They point to lopsided trade terms and lack of transparency, warning that the Philippines risks becoming a pawn in a US-China power struggle. Dissenters fear the country will be caught in the crossfire, calling for a more independent foreign policy and regional diplomacy. The ART framework has become a defining issue, forcing the Philippines to confront hard choices about its identity and alliances. The agreement is a cornerstone of America's friends-whoring strategy, shifting supply chains from China to allied nations like the Philippines. With its strategic location and skilled workforce, the Philippines is poised to become a key player in the global electronics and semiconductor industries. US firms are expanding operations, lured by generous tax breaks and infrastructure investments under the Create More Act and the Luzon Economic Corridor. This economic integration anchors the Philippines firmly in the US orbit, making future pivots toward China increasingly difficult. The strategy creates deep economic dependencies that lock in the alliance, regardless of political shifts in Manila. For the Philippines, this marks the end of its traditional hedging, balancing ties with both Washington and Beijing. The ART framework signals a decisive choice, closer alignment with the US, at the risk of alienating China, its largest trading partner. The bet is that US security and investment will outweigh the risks of Chinese retaliation. The outcome will shape the Philippines' role in the region for years to come. The US-Philippines ART framework is a high-stakes gamble, offering both immense opportunity and grave risk. For the Philippines, it promises energy security, modernization, and a stronger defense against Chinese pressure. Billions in US investment and new high-tech jobs are powerful incentives for closer ties. But the deal's asymmetry threatens to undermine local industries and cede control over vital resources. By challenging China's core interests, the pact raises the risk of conflict in one of the world's most dangerous flashpoints. The South China Sea is more than a trade route. It's a crucible of national pride, strategic ambition, and global power. The ART framework is a microcosm of the choices facing many nations: how to navigate the rivalry between the US and China. The Marcos administration has made its bet, siding with Washington over Beijing. The coming years will reveal whether this strategy brings security and prosperity or drags the Philippines into a storm it cannot control. The nation's fate, and the peace of the region, hangs in the balance, adrift on the treacherous waters of the South China Sea.